35. Dr. Keating concluded her report as follows. Quote, 50-year-old man with minimal psychiatric history presents with escalating delusional ideation over several years, accompanied by some grandiosity, no other clear symptoms of psychosis or major mood disorder. Note, history of bowel CA, with possible signs of recurrence 2 years ago. Need to exclude organic cause of current presentation. He acted on his delusional beliefs by making threats and disobeying legal directives under the belief they don't apply to him, which has caused harm in various domains of his life, particularly his relationships and his reputation, and now leading to legal sanctions. Recent risk to self via hunger strike, however, now eating and drinking. It sounds like mummy looking after a child, doesn't it? Because that's basically what the state is trying to emulate here, is that they're your guardians. So this whole concern is about you being treated as a child. 36. Returning to the September 2020 report from the MHRT, the registrar recorded that the defendant did not have a history of mental illness prior to custody, but that he had a systematized paranoid delusion that there was unlawful military occupation of Australia, and that there are 2 constitutions of Australia. And due to these beliefs, he believes that police officers should be hung for war crimes. He also has had grandiose delusions that he is the mayor of Campbelltown and had been putting flags around the suburb. He described the defendant as being very guarded about the psychotic beliefs and that he refused to engage with the treating team. He apparently had repeatedly told nurses he was going to be released within days and that has friends in very high places. The registrar concluded that he was insightless into his persecutory delusions and was a high risk of harm to others if his beliefs are challenged. At the time, he continued to refuse psychiatric medication. The registrar concluded that the risk to others was due to his untreated mental illness, and so he was transferred to Long Bay Hospital for involuntary treatment. Now, the Justice has not mixed her words here. This is a very, very important statement that's been left on the record by Justice Julia Lonergan, because very clearly at the beginning there is no history of mental illness, but at the end of this paragraph he's being transferred to a different hospital for an untreated mental illness that is, by the words of the registrar, a systematized paranoid delusion. So he disagrees with the state, although that not be unlawful. He disagrees with the system at which this team would be liable for international humanitarian law under Rule 90 and Rule 92. Because by the end of this paragraph, within the first weeks of his incarceration, he is being transferred to Long Bay Hospital for involuntary treatment. That sounds very suspicious to me, that someone could go so quickly into that after being found to be clear of any mental illness before entering into the care of Silverwater Corrections Facility, at which the United Nations were recently denied visitation to inspectors into those facilities, not specifically Silverwater, but New South Wales Corrections Facilities. 37. Documents from the MHRT in early September 2020 noted the grandiose delusions against a background of systematized paranoid delusions. The MHRT agreed with the need for enforced treatment. So we have now a tribunal outside of law that have gathered together to agree on behalf of Dr. Kansu, Registrar in Forensic Psychiatry, has signed off on what follows. 38. A more detailed report of Dr. Kansu, Registrar in Forensic Psychiatry, dated 19 October 2020, was prepared for a later hearing at the MHRT. This included detail that the defendant, despite denying he had any admission to psychiatric hospital or having ever been prescribed psychiatric medications before, had been admitted to Waratah House in September 2015 following an overdose. Although at that point there was, it seems from the discharge summary, no sign of a mood disorder or psychotic disorder at that time. So these doctors have tried to dig into the past of the defendant in a bid to scramble together a reason or purpose for their actions that they've done in the month before. And this report was prepared for a later hearing, so it's not the hearing that was used to transfer him to Long Bay for involuntary treatment. So we've gone from flimsy excuses on behalf of fixated persons into involuntary treatment within a facility within weeks. And this is exactly the torture that the United Nations is specifically talking about.